Sambo.
Maxwell, pleasure.
As always, never a chore.
Good to be here.
We are good. Glad to hear it. Thanks, mate. We are about to sit down. Wow, you really derailed me here.
Thank you.
We are about to sit down with a band dialing in all the way from San Francisco, Spiritual Cramp.
Francisco.
Have you figured out who wrote that song yet, or are you still searching high and low?
It's by...
I'll let you come back to that. These guys, out of San Francisco, as I mentioned, as you sung, and we talked about them earlier on the main episode. I'd call them loosely post-punk, not pop punk. I'd call them loosely post-punk, but their album kind of covers a whole heap of different sounds that kind of fall under that umbrella term. So there was a lot to cover when we sat down with this band. So I think, instead of dilly-dallying around, unless you can hit me with a fantastic fact by the end of this I'm really padding for time here to give you time to Google faster.
I'm all right. Oh, Jesus Christ. I've got an ad.
He's been had by capitalism.
Oh, no. Fuck.
Anyway.
No, I haven't. And this is going to shit me all night long. I think it's Glenn Campbell.
With way, way too much ado.
This is Spiritual Cramp.
Bright and early start for us, but it's exciting because joining us from LA, the city where, it's almost like Brisbane here, but that doesn't matter. Geography doesn't matter right now. We are chatting to Michael from Spiritual Cramp. Mate, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you very much.
We start the show the same way every week, and that is just to get an idea of what's spinning in your playlist as of late.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I've been listening to the new Tony Molina songs. Tony Molina is an artist from the Bay Area. He's kind of a legendary artist, and he put out a few new songs a couple of days ago that I love. I also have been listening to the band Spiritualized. There's a record that they have called Ladies and Gentlemen, We're Floating in Space, which is a really good record. I've been listening to a bunch of the Byrds. And what else? The new Def Heaven record's really good. Love that record. Yeah, I mean, there's so many, man. I could like, that's the question I could just go nonstop on.
It's Pandora's box.
We'll have to do a whole other podcast that's just like records you've been listening to.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of them.
Well, let's not do that. Let's get straight into the Spiritual Cramp chat. You guys are, at the time of recording, just a few days out from releasing your latest album, Rude. Word on the street that this is the first record that you guys have kind of all collaborated on the writing and the recording process together. Was that, was it a creative breath of fresh air? Was it a creative fuckfest, or was it both? Was it a bit of a fun combination of both? What was that process like with everyone getting involved?
It was very welcomed. I've been doing this band kind of all myself with our bass player for a long time. And it was so nice to just finally write a guitar riff and then hand it away and say, hey, can you make this better? And the rest of my band is so good at that. So it was so nice. I mean, there were communication learning curves where I would, they would bring something to me and I would say, oh, no, I don't like that. And telling someone you don't like something, it requires that person to not take it personally. So learning how to say, hey, I didn't like that, but please don't stop bringing me ideas. Because most of them were really good, but every once in a while something would hit and I would be like, oh, that's not really what I'm thinking. Let's go back to the other idea. And then to allow them to know, hey, that didn't work, but keep going. And that, and they did. And it was so fun. And the record is better because of it. They have such interesting takes as producers and writers and musicians. And I love my band members so much. So, yeah.
For you, having done it, almost solo for so long, how was it sort of relinquishing that control? Was it something that you had to sort of consciously let go of and let your bandmates, take things and run for a bit? Or did you really just, I guess, was it all sort of freeing in that sense?
I think that the thought, don't say no because it's not your idea, ran through my head every time anyone said anything. Because, I'm someone, I think that I know how everything is supposed to be with my band, right? And sometimes when someone says something, I'm so fast to just immediately dismiss it and be like, that's not right. But so like whenever anyone would say something, I really had to work hard to take a moment, think about it, and think to myself, is that what's best for this song? And oftentimes it was. I really had to be very thoughtful in my communication to my band members because it's so easy to be a little jerk about stuff like that and be like, no, that's not right. You know, and it's like, is that a decision that I'm making because I'm being egoful? Right. Like, I don't think that's a word, but like, is my ego making that decision? Is it just because I want what I want? Or is it actually not right for the song? And like trying to be conscious of that was like really fun for me as an artist.
Okay. The Spiritual Cramp they've never shied away from mixing in a whole bunch of sounds from across the spectrum in rock and roll, but from across the spectrum music. But this album particularly feels like a real tour de force of just about every kind of every kind of sound that I wouldn't even it'd be silly for me to try and label them all, but like Go Back Home feels like a Hives tribute. Automatic could be like right at home alongside some Block Party hits. Violence in the Supermarket has that kind of dubby reggae thing going on. How did the album end up with being so chock full, even when Spiritual Cramp is already such a band that is happy to play with so many sounds?
You write so many songs and you're like, all right, well, what is the language of this band, right? That's what I ask myself and my writing partner Mike. And like the language of the band is everything that's on this record. Like it's dub music, it's fast punk, it's indie rock. Like those are the things that it's rap, it's like hip hop. Like those are the things that I love and want to be, right? I want to show up to the party and have everyone be like, yo, it's the down ass punk indie rocker who knows about hip hop and reggae. Like, I want people to know that like I know about this stuff because I do. It's like what makes me tick. And so I just think it's like an honest and authentic representation of what I think is sick as an artist. And like, I don't care that there's like I want it to be like, yo, like they kind of do reggae, but it's kind of indie. And I want to be able to play with Block Party and I want to play with the Hives and I want to play with Military Gun and I want to play with whatever crazy world music band is out, Fontaines or whatever, stuff like that. So I want to like be a bit of everything and I want to be everyone's best friend.
If you were speaking to 15-year-old Michael, who, obviously had this love of music broadly as a collective, do you think that, a 15-year-old Michael would look at you now and go, great, he's doing it all. He's got everything in there. Or do you think that that's a love of all kind of music that you've kind of grown into as you've got older?
I think 15-year-old Michael wouldn't necessarily understand what I'm doing today because like I hadn't been introduced to Block Party. I didn't like that kind of music. If I was in a big skate rock band like Pennywise, if it sounded like Pennywise or like the Casualties, I would be like, dude, great job. But like, from 15 to like when I started this band at 27, I think that there was a lot that I got into post-punk and, indie rock. And like, I learned about punk rock and everything was supposed to be punk. Like anything that was not punk was like lame to me. And, but I think that if 15-year-old Mike saw the size of the shows that we were playing, he would be like, yeah, you're in a big ass band. He'd be like, oh, you're on magazine covers. Like, that's cool. He'd be stoked, but I just don't necessarily. I think if he heard the music, he'd be like, that's crazy. What are you on about? But
well, it's interesting we're talking about so many different influences and bands because I did want to talk about Wild 87. And for people that don't know, it's a fictional radio station featuring a DJ and selector Crash, who's voiced by Jose. So what songs from other artists do you imagine would be getting a spin on Wild 87?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I think that you probably hear a bunch of cool old 77 punk. You'd probably hear some soul, some Sam Cooke. You probably hear some reggae music. Barrington Levy. Probably hear some English beat and like the Specials. You probably hear the Ramones and the Clash and Big Audio Dynamite. And you probably hear like a lot of real cool old music. And then bands that I like nowadays, I'd
Yeah.
probably put bands that I like on that radio station too. But it's like everything that you hear on that radio station is what you hear on the record, you know? It's like all those you know, styles you talked about. It's like that's what the radio station is. It's like a Rude Boys radio station, who likes like cool, sharp post punk and indie rock but also like grew up listening to the Ramones and loves the Hives and all that.
I love it.
Joe Strummer would be proud.
Yeah, I think he would like it. I think he would listen to that radio station and be like, "This is dope." They didn't have this when
You guys also added a new producer into the mix for this record, John Congleton. A producer who's kind of like yourself, worked in so many different genres. We recently spoke to the band The Wombats, who had him produce their last record, and his advice to them was basically ditch the demoing, don't come in here with preconceived notions, just start playing something until you find what you want to record. Was it a similarly kind of controlled chaos direction that he gave to you for Rude?
Yeah, for sure. The only problem with that idea or notion is that like you can't do that to me. Like you could tell me like don't work on these songs too much, and I'll be like, okay, no problem, and I will have it all designed by the time I get into your studio. So by the time we got into the studio, we had already like demoed and redemoed and redemoed and rewritten everything, and so it was more like John like pushing to shatter these songs a little bit and make them crazier. And like I would do something and I would say, oh, that's not the way it's supposed to be. And he would look at me and be like, well, what way is it supposed to be, Mike? Because it's supposed to be whatever it is. There's no binary for writing music or making art. And like I think John was very challenging to me in that sense because I am someone who thinks it's supposed to be this one way. And so John would very quickly he identified me as someone he needed to someone's feathers who needed to be ruffled because they did. I needed someone to come and be like, stop. It doesn't have to be like that. It can be super crazy. It doesn't matter. And like that it was destabilizing to me a little bit, but I need to be destabilized, man. I'm like too stable. I've got it all planned in my head. And like, I think John just came along and was like, hey, it's not going to be what you think it's going to be. Be quiet. And I'd be like, okay, and sit down and let him do his thing.
Between John and relinquishing the songwriting and recording control to the wider band as well, it sounds like you personally have had quite a growth journey through this album recording. How do you feel about yourself as a writer, as an artist, now that you've been through this process to get this album?
I feel great. I feel like I learned a lot about collaboration and being respectful because collaborating is all about communicating. And I just think that I started this band because I wanted to do everything myself, right? I wanted to finally be in charge of a band. And we did all the first 7 inches and we did the first LP, and that went pretty good. And at that point, I kind of was like, all right, like that was me. That was me. I did all I think at that point, I just was sick of it just being me because I needed more. People would be like, oh, you guys could like really do more. And in my head, I'm like, dude, I can't do anymore. Like if I did it again, it would be the exact same thing, and so like, I learned that I can just like let go of the reins a little bit and like someone else can come in and jump and I can like sit down and look at my phone. Which is really nice because I don't spend a lot of time doing that. I spend a lot of time worrying about every piece of, business for the band or whatever. And just nice to let other people do the jobs that they're there to do. And that like, it allows me to relax.
Well, speaking of letting other people come in and do their job, you've got a friend of the band, seemingly Sharon Von Etten, who jumps on the guest vocals for "You've Got My Number." How
Yep.
did that collab come about?
Oh, we're just friends. We're just like Sharon is an incredible artist, and she lives in this beautiful world that she's created for herself. And I admire her trajectory as a musician so much. But we're just homies. We met in LA. My wife did her hair, and like we just our families just kind of became friends. And our families became close, and we were friends through that. We weren't friends through music.
Okay.
And so like as like our band started to grow, and she's come to see us play, and we go to see her play, but it's more of like when a family member is like, hey dude, I have this thing I'm doing, I want to invite you to it. It's not like businessy at all. It's more just truly friendly and familial. So I was like kind of hesitant to cross that line with her, because I didn't want to be like, hey, because she's a really big artist. She sells like 5,000 tickets in Chicago. Like she's huge. And so I've always been very cognizant of that and been like, yo, we're just friends. Like I don't want and I know I knew I needed someone to sing on this song. And I just sent her a text and I was like, hey, I've never, I like, it was kind of awkward. I was like, it's please feel free to say no, if this is a thing. And she just wrote back and she was like, I'd love to. Let me know where to sign. And then and then it ended up being more of a duet too. And yeah, I don't know. I kind of just asked a friend if they would do their art on my record, and she was down. It was an honor, truly an honor.
The taking a bit of a sidestep for a moment, the Bay Area has such a massive heritage of punk and of music with like in the broader punk scene, I suppose. You've got the whole Gilman Street scene over in Oakland, where bands like Green Day and Operation Ivy and Rancid came out of. With so many big names in the Bay Area, is there kind of a ceiling that a new punk band has to break through to be taken seriously in the city?
I don't know. I never felt a ceiling. Like I don't see our ceiling right now. Ever since we've started the band, it just has truly felt like an upward trajectory. There have been moments, like during COVID. I think there was a lot of like there's a lot of time to sit around and think about what I should be doing and why I wasn't doing it. But I don't think so. I think San Francisco is a small city. 7 miles by 7 miles. I don't know how many kilometers that is, but it's small and it's easy to make a bunch of noise there. And so it's easy to be a band who you can, if you're good, if your band is good and you work really hard, you can kind of become a little bit louder of a band from the Bay Area than all the other bands. Yeah, I don't know if there's like a ceiling. I don't think there is one. I think that there's a lot of, like you said, there's a lot of famous bands in punk from the Bay, and like I just want to do my thing, and maybe one day people would mention my band name, with those bands. I mean, who knows? But yeah, like I'm just trying to do my thing and get out there and work hard. We work really hard, and I think that there's different kinds of people everywhere. I think that in no matter what city you're in, there's going to be people who are like, "Why didn't I get picked?" And it's like, well, it's because all you do is play local shows. And they're like, "Well, it's expensive to tour the whole world." And you're like, "Yeah, like I've been spending all my money on this for like 5 years." So it's like in any scene, there's going to be people who are like, "Why didn't I just get that handed to me?" And it's like that's not the mindset. If that's your mindset, you're not going anywhere. But if you're going out there and being like, yeah, we've been in New York 5 times in the last 2 years and never broken even once, you'll start to grow.
Yeah.
But I think it takes that like thing inside of you to be like, I don't care, like we're going back, and people will be like, I don't know, like you keep losing money, and you're like, I don't care, I'm called to do it. And if you do that, I don't think there's a ceiling, but I think there's self-imposed ceilings.
Yeah. I mean, within the scene, you said San Fran, excuse me, is quite small, in scale, and we see that in Australia as well. There's a few cities in particular where competition is so hot, and it runs the risk sometimes of, these bands, instead of being collaborative, they're trying to verse each other and trying to one up each other. Is that prevalent at all in the Bay, or is it quite a sort of community feel?
I think it depends on who you're asking. You know,
Well,
I
in
think
your
that
opinion.
yeah. I mean, yeah, like, you know, making something and then putting it out into the world for people to listen to and and consume is very vulnerable. And when you start to get recognition, it feels good. And I think that I don't think there's a competition. I think that when your band is doing good, it feels good. And you want to continue to do good. And I want my band to be the kind of band that when people bring up my band, I want people to be like, oh yeah, they're like really doing something, right? And I think everyone wants that. And so I think naturally in a small scene, there are going to be people who are like, yeah, no, but I'm going to go get this. And you're not going to get as much of it as I'm going to get. I personally don't have those relationships with people, but I don't surround myself with people who would treat me like that. Like, I think that's like a, and I say this coming, being someone who was raised a very poor, but like that's like a poor person's mentality. That's how poor people act. They're like, I'm not gonna give any of this to anyone. It's like that's not I don't and so I don't kick it with people who act like that. And I don't talk about bands who act like that publicly, and we don't play shows with bands who act like that. We just ignore people like that. And like, if you're not cool, like, dude, I'm cool, man. I'm like such a nice person. And I want everyone to get some pie, man. I want everyone to eat, and I want everyone to be having a good time. And I want it to be the kind of thing where people are like, oh, it's them and all their friends from the Bay. And like,
Yeah.
like that's what I want. And I want anyone can get down as long as your art's sick and you're nice. Like you get down, or you get down with us, and we'll kick it with you, and it's all good. But if you're like a little punk who starts a bunch of shit, or can I swear? I'm sorry, starts a bunch of drama. Okay, yeah. If you're like a punk who's starting a bunch of drama, like I'm not gonna pull up on you and try to, smash you out. But I'm for sure never. I'm just gonna ignore you because I know where I'm going. And I see the road I'm on, bro, and it's gonna be a good road. And all my friends can come with me. And if you're cool, jump on. Like, and maybe I could jump on yours too. Like, you know what I mean, or whatever. But I don't know. I try not to look at it that way. I try to just be humble and do my thing and speak the names of the people that I love and hope they do the same for me. And if they don't, whatever, because I got a marathon to run.
That sounds, I mean, from an outsider's perspective, that sounds like a particularly Bay Area attitude, like it's a city that's always been about, inclusivity and welcoming people. Is that something that, you're in LA at the moment? Is that something that you find in SoCal and then in the broader United States, or is that something that you feel like might be, honed into you because you're from San Francisco?
No, that's not honed into me from San Francisco. There's a bunch of bozos from there too, but like I think that any city you go to on earth, you're gonna find the right people to be around, and those people are cool and inclusive and kind and humble, and you got to lean into those people. And in LA, it's like, yeah, man, there's a bunch of bozos here too who are just looking to be cool, who just want to be some cool guy, and who will only pay attention to you if your band's big. And that's okay. I don't mind. Maybe there's something about those people that like that's what happened to them, and they need to act like that as for a protection mechanism or whatever. But again, I just don't kick it with people like that. I find my people. I stick tight with them, and we do all this together, and it's all love. Sure, there's gonna be assholes, no question, but LA is a choose your own adventure city. You can get down with all these super fake people who only want to post pictures of you guys together on Instagram, you know, and be like, it's us, like we're here and you're not. Or you can get down with a bunch of super cool people who are like, yeah, like I'm just happy to be here. This is an interesting life. And like who approach life with a sense of curiosity. And that's what I want, man. I just want to approach this with a sense of curiosity and humility so that when people talk about me when I'm not in the room, they'll be like, that guy is super cool and he is so nice and welcoming and he never cool guyed me. You know, I don't want a cool guy anyway, you know? So it's like, I think any city you go to, you know, you're going to have some dweebs, but like, whatever, man, you rock on, have fun, you know? I don't care.
I love it. Well, before we let you go, it'd be remiss of us not to ask, can we expect anytime soon to see a cross-Pacific ocean trek with some potential Spiritual Cramp shows down under at some stage?
Yeah, we're discussing coming down to Australia right now. I love Australian music. I mean, Rose Tattoo is, you know, one of my favorite. AC/DC is one of my favorite bands. Like, you guys know the band Civic from down there?
Yeah, sure do.
Yeah, I love that. It's like it's like the Australian Spiritual Cramp. Like they're just like a punk. There's so many cool punk bands from there. Stiff Richards. Like I love so much of the music from there. So I definitely it is a priority for us to come down.
We're very excited to see
Stiff Richards has to be one of the best band names ever. That's so
Dude,
funny.
it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Yeah.
Spiritual Cramp's latest album, Rude, is out on October 24th, so make sure you listen in wherever you get your music. Catch them in New York on November 6th, across the UK and Europe between November 19th and December 6th, and then back in the US next year from Feb 17 to March 21st. Head to spiritualcramp.com for more info and tickets to the show closest to you. Michael, thank you so much for taking the time to have a chat to us today.
Yeah, thank you guys. I really appreciate it.